Right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee. Can I draw everyone's attention to page 3 within the agenda, which sets out details regarding fire safety instructions and the webcasting arrangements. For the benefit of those watching from home, members of the committee are seated in the front row, and all non-members of the committee in attendance are seated in the rows behind, of which there are none this evening. So we'll go straight on to agenda item 1, apologies for absence. We've received one apology for absence from Councillor David Sharp. Are there any other apologies from members here this evening, of any colleagues? No? Okay. Item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of October 2025. Are the minutes agreed, members? Agreed, that's unanimous, thank you. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members here this evening? No, there are no declarations of interest. Item 4. Public questions or notice. None have been received. Item 5. Appointment of Vice Chair to the Standards Subcommittee. Before we open this up for discussion, could I just ask for you to, for Claire to explain where we are with this.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just for clarity, Councillor Ward voluntarily resigned from the role as Vice Chair of the Standards Subcommittee on the 8th of August while an investigation to a Code of Conduct complaint against him was undertaken. The investigation concluded there was no breach of the Code of Conduct, and therefore Councillor Ward can seek reappointment as Vice Chair of the Standards Subcommittee.
Thank you, Claire. I'm glad I'm sitting next to an innocent man. Do we have anyone proposing someone to be the Vice Chair of the Standards Subcommittee? Yes.
Chairman, as Councillor Ward has been cleared of a breach of Code of Conduct, may I propose that he's reinstated?
Okay. All right then. Councillor Wilson, Vilma Wilson.
Hello, Chair. I'd just like to second that. Thank you.
Okay, so we have a proposal and we have a seconder that Councillor Ian Ward be duly appointed as Vice Chair of the Standards Subcommittee. We will vote by a show of hands. All those members in favour, please show your hands. That's unanimous. Thank you. Item 6, External Audit Update. Members will hear from the external auditor relative to the external audit update. Okay, are we going to hear from someone? Is that you, David?
Thank you, Chair.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the external auditor couldn't make tonight, so she asked me to read out a statement just providing an update on the audit. So the Council's audit progressed well in November and December 2025. There were a few areas of audit outstanding at the end of the audit visit, and we had a week of resource in mid-January to try and conclude as many areas as possible. These areas are property, plant and equipment, pensions liability and grant income. I met with her today, and the pensions liability has been completed, so it's just property, plant, equipment and grant income. We raised a number of queries to the Council and we'll review the responses during the audit week. One area that is in progress and may not be concluded is the valuation of property, plant and equipment. We have raised queries to the valuer via the Council, and dependent on the response, we'll need to undertake additional work which is not scheduled. Our audit has identified one uncorrected misstatement to date in relation to the pension valuation, which is related to a small number of disclosure amendments. As with the previous years, the audit will be disclaimed for 2024-25. We have undertaken the audit as planned in the audit plan for 2024-25, and the outcome will be disclaimed audit report until the financial statements work is rebuilt in the future years. The finance team engaged positively with the audit team, and the overall completion of the audit has gone to plan so far. So overall, the audit is virtually complete. They're just going to finalise the report, which will come to committee towards the end of February, and then will be signed off by the 27th of February. And there's the one issue seems to be around property, plant, and equipment, and it's around the valuation of. There's a dispute potentially of the valuation around car parks. And so I'm an accountant, so it's an important thing, but equally it's just it's an opinion on the valuation rather than anything that's specific around something that's a specific issue with the accounts. So hopefully that will get resolved, but there's sometimes both sides can get a little bit stubborn over these and say, we think it should be 4.2 million, and this one we'll say 3.8, and you have to try and get to a position where you can't just say, oh, we'll take your number 3.8. There has to be some agreement between the valuer and the auditor. So that's where we currently are. It's normally the last thing to be completed, but that's an update from the external auditor.
Okay, thank you very much, David. Do any members have any questions regarding the external audit update on item 6? No? Okay. Moving on to item 7, cyber security update. Tim or Lee, is someone going to introduce that item?
Thank you, Chair.
Yep.
No further information to add at this moment, but I'm happy to take any questions.
So are there any questions from any member here this evening? Yes?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've just got a question. I'm Janini, independent member, by the way. I just thought I'd let you know. It says on here that you haven't got a business continuity officer in place at the moment. I just wondered whether you've now recruited one, given that cyber
Sorry,
security...
Julie, can you just speak closer to the microphone and start from the beginning again? Thank you.
I just wondered if you've got a business continuity officer in place now, given that cyber security is quite high on everybody's agenda. It just seemed to be... I know you said it in this report, it said it was going to be recruited. So I just wondered if you've recruited into that, and then that you are testing for cyber security and doing all your business continuity planning and everything. Thank you.
So thank you for those questions. So if you'd like to answer those questions.
Yes. Thank you, Councillor. So in response to that, we still haven't got a business continuity officer in post, but I know that's in progress. But running alongside that, I'm employed to enforce and ensure that our cybersecurity is at the best level that we can do it. So we're constantly supporting that. We do have a cybersecurity strategy, and that's got a action plan within there. And there are a series of training, testing that will continue throughout the year. So even though we haven't got an overall plan, we did have, as an officer, we do have plans in place. We have done some desktop testing, and we've also got plans to have a more detailed testing this year.
Right, thank you very much. Does that answer the questions that you asked? Yes? And can I just ask, what's the timescale then for a business continuity officer? Have we got a timescale for that position to be filled?
I'll have to take that away and feedback to the committee. I'm not sure what the timescale is on that.
Right, thank you very much. Okay, item 8, local government reorganisation. So sorry. Okay, Councillor S. Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just ask, if we haven't got this business continuity officer, how vulnerable are we, and can we quantify those vulnerabilities?
Thank you for the question. Any officer able to answer that question?
So, business continuity officer is for the overall for looking after general business continuity and disaster recovery. My team and my responsibility is to look after the cyber side of that. So though we haven't got a business continuity officer who will look at coordinating large events, you do have myself as the corporate manager for data, digital and technology as the officer in charge of cyber.
Councillor Wilson?
Thanks. Yeah, I appreciate that. So if there were an attack that actually knocks out our business. That's not just a cyber issue; it's the whole business. So my question still is: are we still vulnerable because we haven't got this officer in place?
From a vulnerability point of view, I'm in control of the technology and putting in those. I think within, in lieu of the officer being put in post, there is a shared responsibility across corporate managers to ensure that we operate, and if there is an incident, we do have silver command and gold command that would then be put into place. So we've got the processes in. A lot of work was done before the last officer left. So I think it's just that ongoing coordination, re-looking at plans and controlling that. That's the gap at the moment. But we do have processes in place. So the vulnerability, even though, yes, cyber is always there and we can't turn around and say we're never going to have an attack and we're completely covered, but we have processes in place for that. So I hope that gives you some assurance.
Councillor Wilson, does that reassure you? I'm pleased to hear you're reassured. Okay. As reassured as one can be. I think that's a very wise and political answer. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Ward, did you want to ask something?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just following on from Councillor Wilson's inquiry, do we have off-site disaster recovery?
For security reasons, obviously can't go into lots of detail for cyber, but I'm more than happy to have detailed conversations with any member offline to go into the complexities of it. But we have a variety of different layers of cybersecurity and disaster recovery and backup processes, including offsite cloud backup, immutable backup, and a lot of other approaches really to provide a modern and safe sort of like disaster recovery.
So, any other questions on this item? Councillor Vilma Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple really, just going through the report. It talks about an upgrade of the council's data backup arrangements has been implemented. Has that been completed is my first question. Yeah, good, thank you. That's reassuring.
Sorry, that was a yes to that question?
Sorry, that was a yes.
Okay, thank you.
And very much on a similar vein, it says a project to enhance our protection of documents and associated files has been initiated. Has that been completed? And if not, when is that likely to be? It's just about protecting what we've got at the moment. Thank you.
So that project is in flight and will probably take 12 to 18 months to complete the whole project. It's a mixture of information governance and adding in extra layers of protection. So the information governance part of things is more about labelling certain types of documents or data so that it can be found easier and protected at different levels. So our base standard, yep, we've got the backups, we do the normal standard technology protection on that, and this is adding further layers so that we can actually adopt better information governance around the information that we have.
Of course you can, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. So you say it will take 12 to 18 months. Don't know when when that was indeed implemented. So are we what timescale are we looking at? What end date?
So it's in progress now. We've started last year, so I would have thought around this time next year or the next financial year we should be finished by. But I can come back with more detailed plans on that.
Okay. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
to reassure members, I think there was a question over business continuity. Officer Huggins is completely correct in what he said. I just wanted to reassure members that we do have a corporate manager who is responsible for business continuity and emergency planning. That's Officer Anderson, and he's being supported in that role at the moment by Officer French. So while we're actually waiting to engage with someone to get into this position, we are covering it and making sure we are covered in that area. I just wanted to reassure members with that.
Councillor Moore?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I noticed that it was in the news that some London boroughs had a cyber attack and they've got GovCo emails, presumably on Outlook and all of that, and affected their telephone communications as well as their online forms on their websites. Is there anything that we should be looking out for, or has anything been learnt from that how on earth they got in the first place? Because it affected Kensington, Westminster, Royal Borough, Kensington and Chelsea, and Hammersmith and Fulham as well.
Okay, thank you very much for the question there. So is there any kind of collective thinking and critical analysis of when local government does experience cyber issues that are shared across a number of local authorities?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. The answer to that is yes. So, Rochford is part of an Essex-wide digital partnership, and there's a subsection within that that's specifically about cybersecurity. So we're also part of the Essex Resilience Group as well. We're also part of the eWarp, which is the Eastern Warp, and also our specialist security operations centre. The people that are working with there also have links into lots of other local authorities as well across the country, and specifically within London. So before other people heard about that, we already were notified across our network, and we were sharing intelligence and putting in actions within there. You may have noticed just before Christmas that there were a series of emails from myself and other officers to say that we were implementing more security, and that was to address some of the issues that were shared across local government. And it's one of the great things about local government is that we've got a natural network where we do share things behind the scenes as well. So hopefully that answers that.
Does that reassure you, Councillor Moore? Yeah. An element of reassurance. Okay. I mean, reading the room, I do get a sense of the issue of the business continuity officer is exercising the minds of members. So perhaps if I speak to my more experienced colleague, the Chair of Scrutiny, and this committee, and perhaps we can come back and visit the progress on that appointment or the lack of that appointment at a suitable time. Okay. Members, this report is to note only. So we move now on to item 8, local government reorganisation, risk management. So Samantha's going to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report has been requested to give oversight of the Council's risk management approach to local government reorganisation. It provides an overview of how the Council approaches the management of internal and external risk, and how this approach is being used to manage the risks and opportunities presented by LGR. A summary of the identified strategic risks and project risks are set out in the appendix to the report. I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
Do members have any questions regarding local government reorganisation, the risk management? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Don't wish to be picky, but it hasn't been raised and I'd like to get in before it gets commented on. Chair, I have no questions, but the chart actually shows colours which aren't labelled, and I know that one of our members has struggles with the colour red. So if they were to read this online, they might struggle reading that. That's just a picky comment. Thank you.
I think probably insightful rather than picky is a word I'd use there, Councillor Wilson, so thank you very much. So indicating a very high risk. And actually that leads to the question I was going to ask, is the partnership between Brentwood and ourselves. Obviously that's been, I get the sense ever since becoming a councillor, it's been a very productive partnership, but that's the element that seems to be very high risk that will cease. The likelihood is it will cease if there's going to be local government reorganisation. That's a natural consequence of that, isn't it? So would any officer like to speak to that? So Greg?
Evening Chair, evening members. Yeah, I mean, there's no getting around the fact LGR is playing a factor in that risk and the score that it's at the moment. I think it's the unknowing at the moment on what that will be. We will be aware in March, hopefully in March, where we all sit and where we're moving forward with. What I can say is work is going on in the background to make sure that we've got as much information as we can to make sure that when we move forward, one, we're in the best position for members, for officers and for stakeholders in order to make the right decisions that we need to make at the time.
Thank you, Greg, for that update. And is that work being conducted between officers or between members or a mixture of both?
At present, it's with officers looking at the Section 113 and looking at the arrangements with other authorities as we kind of move into the LGR. We're at that strange stage, and I think you may have heard the expression, the Minded To decision that we're waiting for in March, which is where they put forward what the proposal will be. So there's only so much work we can do, but officers are just aligning everything up, looking at the 113 agreement, getting legal advice on that and where we need to be and what we need to do to move things forward.
Thank you very much, Greg, for that. I do wonder at times if it wouldn't be inappropriate for members from both Brentwood and Rochford to have a conversation, because the risk must be similar for both councils. And obviously the members have a responsibility within their own area, but with half of that partnership under threat, I think it could be wise for us to arrange some kind of meeting between the relevant councillors if Brentwood would feel that's appropriate as elected members.
I can't speak for the members over at Brentwood, but I would suggest then maybe we seek that the administration here reach out and maybe suggest that that comes together. We can help facilitate that, but obviously it'd have to be an invite from members to make that happen. But I'm happy to help facilitate that request, if so wished.
I know it's my suggestion, but it does sound a very common sense suggestion to me. Obviously, I'm still very wet behind the ears as quite a new councillor, but I'm sure Councillor Ward might take that back to the leader of the council and have a conversation with Councillor Burton about it.
Yeah, if I may, Chairman. Yeah, it's a reasonable suggestion that this should be initiated from leader to leader between the councils. So maybe it would be a joint member meeting just to discuss the ramifications that will affect both councils. We know there are 4 proposals going forward, one of which does actually keep Brentwood and Rochford together. So, you know, this is one of the proposals that is being discussed. So I know we've worked hard. I know the officers have worked extremely hard in actually the proposal and the business plan for this particular proposal, which I, from a personal point of view, I think is really, really good. But again, this will be down to the Secretary of State or whoever acts on their behalf at government to see whether that's the goer. But I think the concept from the chairman this evening is excellent, that the leaders of both councils should talk member to member to come together to just discuss the ramifications and how we can all work together, whether we stay together or not. Thank you.
Okay, I think it'd be appropriate that we take that forward as an action. Is any member here in disagreement that we take that forward as an action, just to explore the possibilities? There's no greater risk than ceasing to exist, is there? So I think we need a discussion with our counterparts in Brentwood around that scenario. So thank you very much. Any other questions from members regarding local government reorganisation? Okay, so we move now on to item 9, Internal audit update. Again, this report is for noting only. So we've either got Richard or David introducing this item. Thank you. Right, Councillor Ward, yep.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, there are 3 items on here within this report that I wish to highlight. I've spoken to Aaron on the first one, which, let me see, is going to be on page 35 of the report. Now, it's about the administration recommendation of inspection where they're going to do the audit going through. I've spoken to Aaron, and this is where the leadership, that is, the leaders, would like all transactions covering the period from 2020 to 2025 looked at in depth. I'd like to pass on to Aaron, if I may, Chairman, to explain exactly what they will do in the audit and how they will do the deep dive, if you wouldn't mind, Aaron.
Absolutely. So within our plan, we've actually got some flexible assure audit resource that we haven't allocated. So we've got the ability within this year to do this requested piece of work. What's being proposed, obviously, a deep dive into the expenditure over those 5 years. We can't look at every line item. We can't obviously re-audit what's been audited by the external auditors. But what we do propose is doing some data analytics over the data, over the expenditure, to identify if there are any anomalies, compare that to the contract register to understand actually are there contracts in place for higher spending areas, and look to see if there's any lines of inquiry that we can then take forward with management to understand, but obviously to provide the administration with some assurance around where that expenditure has gone and present that potentially in a bit more of a pictorial diagrams and graphs to show actually here's the higher area spends, this is how it's divvied up, etc. That's our proposal at the moment, and actually it dovetails quite nicely because we've got a contract management and procurement audit that we're doing that's looking at the core processes, so we'll be engaging with management in those areas already.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ian Ward, does that answer your questions or inquiries?
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. I have another item to bring forward as well on this report, which relates to page 49, which is enforcement. Again, I know the officer isn't here, and I know David next to me is going to pass this on, but the administration require a need to identify the slippage in enforcement, which is now becoming a problem throughout the district, and would like positive recommendations and solutions to address this issue. So I don't know if you wish to say anything, David, in bringing that forward, or is there another officer here who can really address this at this moment in time?
For clarity, this is part of our follow-up report. So this is part of our follow-up report. So what we've got here is management updates. So beyond what's provided, we'd have to take it away to give you more clarity on what management are doing. However, just to flag, it's classed as in progress at the moment in terms of the action being addressed because it's missed one implementation date. So that's how we categorise if it's in progress versus overdue where it's multiple. But we've had revised date of the end of March as to when that action's going to be implemented, but what I can't do, obviously, as it resides with management, is give you any context further than that.
It was nice to see that 6 actions have been completed, 6 are in progress, and 7 are overdue. So there's an equity there in numbers. Yep, okay, that's lovely, thank you.
So what I was going to do as well is if from the follow-up report, those 7 that are overdue, just to give some clarity, there are 5 that relate to 2 areas in relation to staff recruitment and overtime and expenses with a due date of the end of December. So due to the festive period, we were expecting they were pretty much 99% there. We were just waiting on further confirmation and evidence to be provided, which we've had management confirmation that is ready for us to verify. So actually, of those 7, a further 5 are now deemed to be complete. So we will update that in our next report to you in the committee's meeting. So that looks like a better picture in terms of only having 2 overdue at this point in time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ian Ward.
Thank you again, Chairman. This is in reference to page 53 and various other things that have come forward with regard. We need to look at possible conflicting policies that make it difficult for officers to efficiently transpose policies into action, ensuring that the administration's policies are acted on as intended. Now, I have had a conversation with Samantha in regard to this, where actions are going to be taken, and we were talking about various departments, such as planning and other departments which want to do things and are obstructed by certain things. I'd like to pass this over to Samantha, who has looked through it, and I think will give a reasonable response. Thank you very much, Samantha.
I'm so sure Samantha would be delighted. There you are, Samantha.
Thank you. So just to bring the committee up to speed, I had a conversation with Councillor regarding the Council's policy and strategy schedule, which is a schedule of all the policies that are due for review at any time during the year. As part of that policy review process, there is the opportunity, as the policy comes forward for review, to consider the impact of that policy and how it interacts with other policies in the Council. When you go through the Council's policies as part of the documentation, there is a list of all the policies that have some bearing on that specific policy. So as part of that process, we can look at how these policies interact with one another. Just further to that, in your report this evening on page 53, you can see there that we have gone over in terms of delivering the policy and strategy development training, which we are working to address and hope to have in place by March 26. But as part of that training package as well, it will be working with officers to ensure they understand how to go about reviewing policies and the key considerations they need to make when doing that as part of their role. I'm happy, I hope that answers your question. But if there's anything else you would like to query, please feel free to do so.
Councillor Ward?
Yes, thank you very much, Samantha. I believe we mentioned that the crossover that we are concerned with is where we have economic policy and planning policy, where sometimes economic policy is stymied by planning policy. And I think that's, again, an area, we know that some of it is statutory, but we need to be a little bit, how can I put it, proactive with regard to these. I don't know, I think this is a case of looking pragmatic, with a bit of pragmatism. I don't know if I'll pass that over to you as well, please.
Yes, so when a policy comes up for review, part of that process involves discussing with members some of the considerations we need to make as part of that review process. So if members have specific concerns or are seeking a particular view in that policy, that can be taken on board and considered as part of that development process. And as you rightly mentioned there, some policies do have a quasi-judicial nature about them, which means that there's very, sometimes in certain cases, limited things that you can do. You have to stick quite rigidly to the legislation. And where that arises, I think having that conversation between officers and members ensures that everybody understands why the policy is the way it is, and things that can't be changed and the reasons for that. So it's more around the communication and understanding and engagement as part of that policy review process.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm grateful to the Vice Chair for his concerns around the policies, and I'm also grateful to Samantha. Councillor Ward and I had a meeting with officers recently regarding policies and the policy schedule, and it was sent to us straight away upon request. And I know Councillor Ward and myself will be keen to look at that in detail and to see the implementation of those policies, or indeed when they're due for review. So in terms of the lines of inquiry for the recent internal audit, it seemed to focus on sickness absence, and I read the findings of that approximately a third of staff sickness situations had issues. So 15 were in the evidence review, 2 cases, there were 5 cases where perhaps policy hadn't been completely followed, and this is a judgment's been made that was attributed to the Council's lack of oversight over management compliance with policies. So that's something Councillor Ward and myself will be looking at, and I hope we can bring that back to this committee. And the second line of inquiry for the report was really about the induction of new members of the Council. So I'm just wondering, Claire, if you could just talk to that? We had an interesting conversation just before the meeting started.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Obviously, this was picked up in the internal audit report regarding the corporate governance and the change in moving from cabinet to committee system. And obviously, the induction didn't happen last year because we didn't have any elections. And obviously, if you remember going back to the year before, a new approach was taken to induction. It was more like a fresh affair where you went to Mill Hall and members came and they met with officers and different departments. Obviously, what we need to do is probably do a hybrid of both, where you have that induction where you can meet and greet all different officers, but also have your thing where you get your induction pack, you meet senior officers probably in the chamber, and we have more of a record that you've been through that induction period.
So as I read this report, I'm minded that I think induction has taken place at certain key points, but we haven't got the evidence it's taken place. And I think that's the key aspect. So whether there's some kind of e-learning approach where there's a quiz at the end and you get issued a certificate, I think that's the kind of thing we need to be looking at. So there is hard evidence of which members have done the appropriate courses.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. That's been picked up, obviously. That's been picked up in, obviously, a internal audit report, but also in the AGS regarding how we can capture members' training better in induction. And obviously, e-learning is one thing that we'd really like to look at. So we have evidence that you've actually undertaken that training and have a certificate, so we can upload them onto modern.gov so everyone can see that you are following all the training that is required in your role.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for that reassurance. Any more questions from members regarding the internal audit, item 9? Just like to remind, Councillor Vilma-Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. If I may just carry on from what Claire has just said regarding the training, I'm particularly grateful to the council that they've put in a mechanism in that if you can't attend a online training session for whatever reason, that actually you can watch that back, watch the recording back, and report that you've carried out that training, and that is now noted, because I know that was causing quite a sizable gap in some members' training that wasn't being recorded. So thank you for being proactive in that. Thank you.
Thank you for that insight, Councillor Wilson. Okay, so any other questions from members? Just like to remind, Councillor Milne.
Only a quick one. Obviously, training should really be part of an ISO standard, and there's two types of kind of professional development here. There's one where there's awareness, so we just give a PDF certificate, just like the Chartered Society of Forensic Sciences do. And the other one, where if you're on licensing or something that's a bit more technical, we can have tested CPD. You use Survey Monkey or something to put up a little test, obviously not too taxing because we're only lay people. And then you've got your tested CPD for key people in certain areas and just the normal certificate that you have attended. And we can just keep a log of those, in fact, just on a spreadsheet. And if anyone asks us, where are we with this, we can tell them.
So I think there are key themes coming across: evidence of taking part, evidence of successfully being able to apply the knowledge and skills you should have been taught while undertaking that professional development. And I'm sure perhaps we can even invest in a master's programme for some members on top of that. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we've finished with that item. So we'll go to item 10, Treasury Management Quarterly Review, 2025-2026. This report begins on page 93 of your pack. So either Emma or David going to talk to this one.
Thank you, Chair. I've got nothing to add, but I'm happy to take questions.
So do we have any questions from members? Councillor Wilson, Vilma Wilson.
Thank you, Chair. No, I don't have a question, but can I just say I thoroughly enjoyed reading this report because I learnt a lot from it, and I love the way it was laid out. It was clear and concise, and as a very, very lay person, it made a lot of sense and I could understand it. So thank you very much.
And Claire will be sending you a SurveyMonkey report to fill out, to evidence your understanding and to apply your new skills and knowledge. I think it's just reassuring, I think, as members that we seem to be in a secure financial position. I don't think every local authority could say that at this moment in time. So I think that should reassure members and indeed members of the public as well. Okay, so once again, this is a report for noting. Unless there are any other questions, we'll move on to item 11. Risk management update. And again, is this back to you, David? On page 105 of the pack.
Thank you, Chair. So this doesn't have the risk register on it, because what we're currently doing is we're currently reviewing risks. So we've had, we brought Zurich in initially, then there's been a few meetings with senior management and CMT as well, and some discussions around risk. Then we're going to finalise that in January, review the risks, try to reduce the strategic risks down to 10, maybe 12, but the key strategic risks that will have how we mitigate the risks and have a more detailed plan. Some of it will be linked to if we've got a reserve position to provide protection to the council, so it'll be a bit more detailed. And then we'll also look at the operational risks, but that will come to the committee in February.
Thank you very much, David. Any questions from members? No? Again, members, I'd just like to remind you, this report is to note only. Item 12, update of action from the Annual Governance Statement 2024-2025. This report begins on page 111, and Claire will present this report.
Thank you, Chair. I've got nothing else to add, but quite happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions from members? No questions? Then I will move a motion that the recommendation on page 111 be approved. Can I have a seconder, please? Okay, thank you, Councillor Ian Ward. We will now vote on that recommendation. The recommendation is that the committee acknowledges the progress made against the AGS, Annual Government Statement 2024-2025 Action Plan, as set out in Appendix A. So all those in favour of the recommendation, please show of hands. That's unanimous. Thank you very much. We move on to item 13, committee work programme. This report begins on page 117 of your agenda pack. Do members have any questions or any other suggestions of items that should be included? Okay, it does look quite busy on there anyway, but I'm sure there'll be other things added as we progress. Okay. Again, this report is for noting only unless there are any more questions from members. There's no more questions. Okay. So that now concludes the business for this evening. Thank you for the attendance, and the meeting ended at 8:15. Thank you.